And once again, I had to let it cool down. Sorry for the delay. So I've kind of just been sitting here, and what I ended up doing while waiting was I redid the base just in a way that I felt worked more. But that's kind of, I tried not to do a lot because I want you guys, those that are wanting to see the whole process in slower time, I wanted you to not really miss out on a lot. So I'm trying to push through a little quicker now, just because I feel like I'm at a point where I can make the last of my informed decisions on the general pose and silhouette, and then it's time to think about the details. So right now I'm just trying to kind of hone in a shoulder blade, and unfortunately I changed the positioning of parts of the arm, but I don't think I changed it enough that I can't still run with that shoulder blade. I decided I didn't want both hands to be up, and I might change my mind. I'll know soon enough. But for now, I'm going to run these arm muscles out, or at least enough of a silhouette that I can get an idea for it. Sometimes I'll, when I'm not doing a maquette, I'll run these out a lot more kind of planned, but the free flow is for the sketches, and then I'll just kind of blend whatever parts of them I feel need to get blended. In this instance though, I do try to keep in mind what a muscle's function is. So in this instance, the arm is extended, so the tricep is activating more than the bicep. And so I would want to, if I was trying to think about anatomical restraints or functions, I would make sure that my triceps were flexed, or at least a little larger than the other part. Something like that, maybe, without being too big, because that's the other thing. I don't want this to be, huge. Huge arms. That's not what I'm going for. Maybe. I may change my mind. I feel like lengthy arms could add to the effect that I think I'm going for of this kind of reach towards the sky pose. I'll know in about 2 seconds once I've thrown on more clay. So I think I know what I want the piece to do. There we go. I'm torn between a smaller, more nimble arm and longer, kind of not deformed, but just unnatural arms. I think I don't want to go any longer than that though. And then with that like that, I can easily get an idea for what I want to go with, potentially. So how I make my fingers, my hands kind of changes depending on what I'm working in. Working in monster clay, I'll usually try to form them all from the same blob. Sometimes with Chavant, because it's so sticky, I can get away with just kind of adding the fingers on to a rough shaped hand. That doesn't work as well, I found, with monster clay, because it's the wax content of it wants to fight you, is what my personal experience has been. So I'm going to go ahead and get this kind of posed out how I need it. And let's see. That's good. And then decide whether I want an extra finger in there. And I think I do. I think that I kind of like this extra finger, but that's like lower it's a look that I kind of keep putting in my sculptures, but I enjoy it. Let's get this thumb looking better. What I might do too is change the size of some of these. Make sure you guys can see that. Yeah, cool. So this is pretty much where I want this. Yeah. And I can take it, just dab it on there, see if I like it. And the more that I look at it, actually, the more I think I want shorter arms. Possibly. It's really hard to tell until you kind of do like a full pose. I think I want it to look like he's stretching. Sometimes I'll do whatever pose I'm trying to go for, I'll kind of do it myself and see what I would do naturally and try to mimic that in the piece. I didn't really want a fully straight arm because I feel like that's weird. But I also think that it's better if the piece is, something like this. I think that works. And let me see if I can zoom out so you guys can see that arm, that hand here. We're going past the backdrop, sorry. But I have a short backdrop, so I don't usually make super tall things. I like that. I might even honestly contemplate having 2 different sized hands or arms. Because that was one of the dilemmas, to go asymmetrical or to go symmetrical. I'm going to put this deltoid in here. I'm going to wrap this one around. Oh wow, that looks good already. I definitely feel like once you have like all of your insertion points and stuff where they should probably be, sculpting gets a ton easier. It just becomes like, oh, okay, run this line of clay here and then run this one here. Usually, I will say that there are definitely moments where it doesn't work out that way. But in this case, do that, kind of throw in the silhouette of like the elbow, and then I work on the front section, just kind of trying to get that general shape of that bicep. And then here, unfortunately my wire is kind of in the way once again, so actually what I'm going to do is see if I can push it in more. And it's not really trying to do it the way that I need it to, so I'm going to have to work around it, but it happens. There's nothing I can't work past. It's a side view of that arm. And now I need to kind of sculpt those muscles that are running up in there and bunching up. If you're wondering, this line that I have here is to represent the center of the sculpture in theory. That's one of the tips and tricks I learned from another sculptor that I'm trying out sort of to a degree today. I'm not doing it to the letter, but but I'm using it as like a general kind of guide to see where I might want to shift things. But basically, it's a good way for you to know whether in how you're stretching something, you're stretching it too much or wrong, or an insertion point's off, or just the overall like structure and the width and stuff of a sculpture is wrong, which I think is helpful information to have. Actually, the sculptor that I've been learning a lot of this stuff from is awesome guy. He's on Patreon. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Ira Garnison. And no, don't worry, this isn't a promotional page for him. He's one of the sculptors that honestly kind of gave me the inspiration and the drive to kind of try and make something like this. So I think that, even if sculpting isn't paying my rent, if people love what I'm doing and they can provide me with even just enough for it to fund the continued work that I do, I'm eternally thankful for that. Because that's still better than me waiting to finish a piece because I can't afford to buy material or, something stupid like that where someone's creativity is stifled by what they can and can't afford. And I hate that. I don't want to get like too not political, but like too, I wouldn't say emotional either, but like that kind of stuff just bothers me. I hate it when people have awesome skills and talents, but they can't utilize them. There are so many people in this world that just can do phenomenal things, but don't have the means or the time or the money to make it happen. And then you've got people that don't have skills or necessarily talent either, and they make all this money and can do all these things doing, pardon the language, stupid stuff. It's like, why are you getting supported in your lifestyle but other people who I feel would do more with that support aren't? I feel like I should move that shoulder blade up a little more. I think I'm going to do that. I think I want it here. Because it's not doing as much of a break as I think it's doing. And I'm going to refocus the camera on the core. There we go. I like this. What I'm about to do is check this. It's a really good way to do this. So now I know that that's where that arm stops. If I keep them the same proportion, which I might, just to make life easier. I just don't know if I like where that arm is. I kind of wanted both of them to be jutting out, but I also don't. But I don't want this arm to just be to the side either. I feel like that's like lazy posing. But it also depends on how things like the fingers are posed as well. I'm going to go ahead and unwrap some of this wire off of this arm in a way that lets me shape a hand. I think it'd be kind of cool if he had like a little baby hand in here. Possibly. Like little feeders or something. I've been watching the show Resident Alien. That's a really good show. And the alien form of the main character, he's got 4 limbs And he's got 2 extra in here. And I think District 9 does this too. With the prawns. I think that's a cool little design. My only problem with it would be that it would get in the way of the flow of the organs and the chest muscles, maybe. It might not do as much damage as I feel like it's going to. I won't know until I toss some clay in there and see. Because I like the general silhouette of the torso right now. I really like how it's like bulging out. Because I'd like for this to have a classical-esque feeling to it. That'll only come from you kind of just paying attention to what stuff's doing. I feel like these muscles aren't doing what they should be doing. I think that this should be here. But I could be wrong. I think I want them to kind of curve in this upwards direction too. I might also put some shoulder up there. I am really happy with this so far. At least the pose. The concept, not so much, but that sometimes that takes time to really get where you want it to be. I wonder if that could work. Like a normal hand kind of doing like this. I feel like my only issue with that would be, would he have 4 of those or just the one? And the issue with like asymmetrical design. It's no right or wrong answer, which is the unfortunate thing. I might actually do that. It looks like that could be really cool. Let me, so in an instance like this, what I would do is just cut me some thinner wire and decide on a pose. Actually, I've already got some. I forgot I had some wire twisted already, so I'm just going to cut this like here. And then I can reserve a bit of it as a peg, and so that's what I'm doing. This much is going to be my peg. And then I can go ahead and decide on the lengths of my arm. I'm going to build this up rapidly, so I'm going to free flow it and not think so much about proportion. I know I don't want it to be a super big or long arm, so I'll probably stop it here. If that's the case, then I'm going to cut my wire off here. Make sure you guys can see. I usually just let it fly somewhere. I'm bad about that. And I'm going to clip some more off of my peg too, because I don't necessarily need that to be super long. And then for now, usually if I'm adding on a limb randomly, I try to focus on just getting the anatomy on that limb right before I blend it into the rest of the body. Because I find that, you know, in the event that you don't like what you've made, if you've already, you know, if I've already carved into the actual torso to make room for this to look correct and look like it's got, you know, the connective tissue where it should be, then it's like, now you have to patch all of that you wouldn't have had to have patched if you just waited and seen if you liked it. Those are my thoughts anyways. So like here. I actually like that. I do like that. It adds some dynamicism to the piece without being like overbearing. The only thing I'm going to change is the length of this wire so that I can drop a hand on this. And what I might do with this hand is have it kind of outstretched too, but in a different kind of way. So actually I'm going to pull this clay off. It's a little chilly in here. I got my fan on to try and like offset how hot that camera gets. It seems to be working. I'm not sure for how long it'll work, but for now it's working. Here we go. Things always get tricky when you start working super small. I don't want this hand to be as big as that hand, so I'm going to use that hand as reference for making sure that my claws aren't as long as that. But I also might think about the usage that this appendage might have. But I feel like with something like a demon, it becomes less important. To a degree, it's still important, but like when you've got an organism that actually, has an ecosystem that it might exist in, then the function of everything is a lot more important than something that's supposed to be like an abomination. In that case, sometimes you can just be like, why not put 3 heads on it and put all of its eyes and its feet? It's supposed to be terrifying and unnatural. To a degree. I think what I'm going to go for here is a similar kind of stretch feeling, but very different way of achieving it. And I think I'm only going to put 3 fingers on this hand. And then pose it, and then make it longer to make the actual hand longer than the hand on the other part. Oh, I like that. That's cool. Okay, so if that's going to be like that, I think I need another one. And if I'm going to have the other one on here too, I need to, unfortunately, change the pose of this arm again so that it can support it. I think I'm going to kind of put this higher up like that. And then, ooh, what if I do like that? Hold up, I might be onto something. Yes, I just moved his muscle up. You watch that. That happened. What if I do something like this? Because that actually that invites the engagement of these muscles here. And it does some other stuff too. It breaks up the flow of the piece, but in a way that I don't think I hate. Kind of like jeez, what's the word I'm thinking of? Not sure. But now, to kind of decide that that's gonna work for sure, I'm gonna go ahead and cut. Sorry, I cut out because I was getting a phone call and I didn't really want to kind of have that bother you guys. Let's see. So contemplating changing the style for the legs. I don't think I want to though. I think I kind of like them, but I was trying to. Like the biggest thing I was battling with was trying to figure out where I wanted to create a divide between a simple, like humanoid shape and something more, well, monstrous. I feel like it's easy with some of these concepts to just kind of end up making the same thing sort of over and over again, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to try and figure out a way to keep bringing more to the table. Here we go. It's a pretty good silhouette. Then I'm going to just plug it in. Now that it's plugged in, I can do whatever I want to it. And just decide on a pose that I think works. I think that before I decide on my pose, I'm going to work out another hand. The expression of a hand can have so much control in what a piece ends up becoming and whether a pose works. So I always, some artists are good enough or have enough vision to do those parts last, but for me, I glean so much of what I'm doing as I'm working, which isn't like, it works for me, but there are definitely times where I wish that I knew how to work a different way. Just for the sake of clarity. I think that's the biggest thing that I struggle with as a sculptor, is because I end up seldom introducing any kind of sketch work besides for like the maquette. It's hard for me to get a vision, a full-on vision of everything. Like, how do I want these scales to look? What do I really want to happen with this head? And that's why one of the things that I'm hoping to do this year more is just draw. It is kind of cool that I don't sketch my pieces, but as I want to make, finished sculptures for products and stuff like that, having a more solid idea for the pipeline would be awesome. But also, if I get really good at drawing, then I can give you guys prints of those sketches and those design works, or even do something like a journal or an art book that's just every design or sketch that turned into a sculpture in the last year or so. Because I think that'd be cool. Especially if you own the sculpture, then you can be like, this is the sketch. Or, a copy of it. Might sell the actual sketches too, don't know. Or it's something I could give away to, actually. Yeah. One of the tricky things I found about recording so far is making sure to stay in frame of the camera. I usually like to pull my stuff right up to my face, and so I've had to make a mental note in the last couple of days to just make sure that I'm not pulling everything out of here, because I don't have the camera that I'm using doesn't have a screen that I can flip around, so I have no idea what you guys are seeing until I periodically check. So I just try to make sure I'm kind of in that range most of the time. Take a little more off of this just so I don't have to worry about it potentially getting in my way. And then I'm going to stab this onto here, but I'm going to brace it from here. And that works. So now, my arm's itchy. Now the question becomes, sorry, arm was itching and I was worrying about it. Question becomes, how do I want this to be posed? I think the design is broken up in a lot of nice ways. I'm going to take that off just because it's a little too... I wish the stuff didn't dry as quickly as it does, and it becomes kind of like unworkable. It likes to... It gets airy, I feel, is what happens. And it's easily like collapsible, which is annoying. But I could do something like that, in which case... What am I doing with the other arm? And I think I'm going to put that hand on there now too. Or a hand. Let's see. This is going to fight me a little more than usual. So I think what I might do to avoid overheating in the future until I can figure out something permanent, I might record in 20-minute segments or something like that. And what I might do is, because I'm not sure if you guys are going to actually want to watch the entire tire sculpting process. And you might let me know if you do, because then I won't do this. But I might do just segments of different key parts of the build-up. So I would do a video that's maybe 45 minutes, and it's just covering all of what I was doing during the initial design and roughing out phase. And then if I think I'm about to do something pivotal, I record that. And then stuff like working on the details on the torso, working on the details on the head, that kind of stuff. But like segmenting it out so that you don't have to watch so much of the I'm randomly moving stuff 6 times, and get something I think that might be more enjoyable for you. But I don't know. I'd like to think that these videos should end up being something nice for you guys to put on in the morning as you're, going about your morning routine, having your coffee, maybe doing some sketching, or like doing your own sculpting or something like that. Maybe doing some yoga. I said yoga because I started doing yoga recently, and I found out I am really just not limber anymore at all. But I injured my back last year right when COVID started, so that's probably why. Is getting a back injury and then not going to the gym or working out really for a year probably does that to you. But yeah, I'll make this one smaller than the rest. I have no idea why I like these little fingers, but I just do. They just feel right, like just the right amount of weird. So now, what I'll usually do is I'll bend it to kind of create a little definition in the hand. Just enough. And I'll see them, compare them to each other. I think that works. I might make it a little shorter by just pushing up the thumb a little more. But it's not bad. Now that that's on there, I'm going to run it like that. I kind of want this arm to be shorter. It brings a piece out so far in length, but I also like it. Trying to think of what could make this better. Ooh. Could that work? feel like the arm doing that would be weird in terms of the musculature working. But let me get some muscles on that first to decide for sure. Because it's so hard to figure out some of that stuff when you really don't have any muscles on there. So I'm going to run some little baby deltoids. Try to think about how I'd want some of these muscles to blend into each other, since it's an extra appendage. Okay, it's kind of working. I just have to make sure I keep these kind of nimble. Most of the mass should be in that upper bicep, and then having this be shorter or thinner. That's what I'm going for. But not stupid then. Just kind of like, yeah. Okay, so now what I have to contend with is whether I want him to be doing something specific with this arm. I'd like to think that this is like a moment of, I don't know if ecstasy is the right word, but just like, and maybe not even glee, but like, maybe triumph. He's just like smelling that fresh air. He's like, yes, I am here again. I am ready to wreak havoc. And I don't know if that means that I want him to be touching like his skin or his flesh or something, but also I still haven't decided whether I want this to be male, female, or some interesting blending of the two, because there's no reason that I couldn't do that. There's really no reason that I couldn't. Could easily just do something like this. You guys are probably like, he's not even done figuring out what he's making and he's throwing genitals on it. But I feel like it's a good way to decide on stuff. Sometimes that kind of thing helps determine things. Because I feel like the rib cage is broad enough that it would look interesting for this to have a female flair to the form. And it would just be about kind of making sure they're not poorly done. Because that's really the thing you don't want to do, or that I hate, is like poorly done anatomy or stuff like that. There's some stuff I see every now and then that just makes me go, why? Or just, ugh. We just have bits and bits of both. No reason not to. But I think if I'm going to go with something like that, I think I want to make this head smaller. actually get rid of these horns for a bit too. I think they're not getting in the way of the design, but to kind of more freely examine it for what it is, what it isn't, what I require it to be. So now I have a somewhat human-looking skull, which is not a bad thing, because I can patch this and blend it into what I need it to be, or make the decision to go completely away from a human-like skull. But now I can make that decision. But I also kind of like it without the horns. I do kind of like it without the horns. What I'm gonna do real quick, what I'm doing is I'm drawing the musculature. And I'd show you guys this more, but I'm right-handed, so sometimes it's hard for me to do things in a way that's easily recordable. I tried to work around that by putting the camera to my left, and it's helped a bit. Depends on what I'm doing, because I end up still using my left hand as like a brace point, at which point it's like, oh joy, you know, you guys get to see my left hand covering what I'm working on. That's one thing. I decided to see what would happen if I carved these muscles out instead of the norm. Because in Chavant, I would probably just run them over the existing muscles, but I wanted to see if I'd like this. So I do like it, and it's a really good thing. Here's what I'm working on. I'm at that stage where I need to flare out the anatomy. But the only annoying thing is that it's hard to do this without tearing up your muscles sometimes. But I think that will work. And then I don't always do this way, but I've got this tool next to me, so I'm going to do it. I'm just going to kind of gracefully go across the two edges, and I'm kind of raking the surfaces and blending them together. The other way that I could do this if I wanted to would be to take this tool or something like it and just do this, which is what I'll do sometimes. It's a lot quicker. And in an instance where, you know, you're not looking for perfect, you're looking to get an idea out and down, I think this definitely wins. Because I can go over this later and flatten out what I need to flatten out. Because this is a little more defined than I'd want it to be the muscles and not the ribs. But that stuff's easy enough to go over for the most part. I like that. Only thing I don't like is this connecting point back here. And then this muscle here. 'Cause these two I overlapped on top of each other. There are other ways to do this though too. But sometimes it just depends on some factors. Like here, what I'll do first is I'll blend to try and get some consistency in the contours of the ribs. That'll help make sure that when I run these muscles, that they actually maintain like a consistent, what's the word I'm looking for? Not size, but like, I guess volume in relation to what the ribs could and won't be doing. I mean, sometimes that deviation's cool, but it really just depends. I need some more coffee. I've had like the equivalent of 2 cups today. I've been drinking it a lot more lately, especially when working on pieces. I think I kind of like the inclusion of the breasts. It's interesting because I feel like you don't really get that a lot with something like this. So if I do it and I do it well, it could be an intriguing thing. And then I need to run this muscle again. Pecs are hard to run in a way that looks good, depending on the angle that you're working it from. Now that that's done, I think what I want to do next is define my sternum. Because the sternum will run, and then these will kind of do whatever they end up doing. And when I say whatever they end up doing, I mean like there's like, you know, like boob science dictates how and where they should be based off of the muscles, because I mean breasts are just sacks of fat pretty much that are connected to muscular tissue, and so they really follow some rules based off of those muscles, and they can't deviate too much from that. What I'm doing here, what I'm thinking about doing is establishing this sternum again, possibly shrinking it, but I also like it. I mean, I'm really liking this so far. The thing I don't think I like is the legs. I like the idea of them, but I don't know if I like both of them being that way. Maybe if one of them was like a normal leg, but then that would feel weird to me. And I'm not sure it would feel weird in a way that I want to kind of express or deal with as it stands. This could work. I could also do something like this. But I really don't like that. I think that it works best if this arm is below the main arm. I don't think the secondary arm should really, for the most part, be above the primary arm in an instance where a creature has 2 arms. I think that in terms of like anatomy, that's probably like the main thing, is that most of the time this attaches from like the same shoulder blade, but its range of motion should be limited because of some of that stuff. But look at this on the camera. It looks kind of cool. I might No, I hate that. And I feel like if I'm gonna have it, it should break up the silhouette and not just be there. You know? So I'm kind of actually, hold up. That might be what I'm looking for. Because that would... Yep. And sometimes it just hits you. I think that that's what I want. I think that I like that. I think that I can work with that. I think that this gives me room to run my muscles. It doesn't impede on the beauty of the already existing upper arm musculature. And it lets me do this. So by the time I've uploaded this and edited it, I might have another thing in the works. I've got some ideas for some sculptures, personal stuff that I've been thinking about, besides the werewolf. By the time this is uploaded, I should, in theory, be done molding and casting that werewolf. I won't know until after I'm done, recording this, and then I probably won't edit this today. It's Sunday for me, but I might. And if I do decide to edit it today, then I won't get to that part today. I always slow down when I'm doing stuff like this, like talking. It requires a lot of... I feel like it requires a lot more like mental focus to do certain parts of this than people like think. At least to do them right. Like I could talk a bit more, but I think I would get a lot more wrong than I would want to get wrong on these pieces. The other cool thing about this arm is that it swivels. And since it swivels, I can do cool stuff like this. And just decide on where all of that needs to go, which is awesome. I think that swivel could be cool because I could actually do it like this too. I feel like this is like... I'm curious about what makes a demon and not just a monster. I feel like I'm trying to figure out what necessarily defines this as specifically a demon and not just some creature from my imagination. And it's hard to come up with ideas sometimes. I think that wings should insert in between the trapezius muscles and the shoulder blades. So basically like in this little section of skin right here. I don't know if I want wings on this though. They might be too much. So you've got a lot going on in different angles. But that's how it's got to be with this arm being where it is, unless I shortened them. But I don't think I want to do that. What I might do